Good evening and welcome to the Isle of Rassi Distillery. I'm Alistair Day, co-founder, master distiller, and with me I have...
Hi, I'm Ellie. I started here as a tour guide, and for the last few months I've been a distillery operator.
I'm Ross Gillis, and I'm the production manager at the distillery.
Great, I see our background has decided to change. I might nip round and do that. This evening we're going to talk about our Quercus Humboldtii release, which we have with us. There we go, our Quercus Humboldtii. And if I turn the camera slightly, just to the side here, and down a touch, can you see that? No, that's because that bottle's in the way. No, that's great. That's our Quercus Humboldtii cask. Okay, shall I quickly do the background for me?
Yeah.
2 secs.
More appropriate than Machu Picchu.
Yeah, it's not Colombia.
Great view, but not as great as our view.
There we go.
Go back. Okay, so why Colombian oak? Why Quercus Humboldtii? Well, to me it's really interesting. I did my degree in botany, so I'm fascinated with things like oak species, barley varieties and yeast, and how they affect and influence the flavour of our new make spirit as it matures. And there are 600 species of oak in the world, 500 in the Northern Hemisphere. But in Scotch whisky, there's really only 3 species of oak used: Quercus alba, which is North American white oak, Quercus Bettrea, and Quercus roba, which are both European oaks. So here in Rassi, we actually use 5 different species of oak. We use those 3 that are widely used. We also use Quercus Muhlenbergi, which is Chinkapin oak, which is part of our 6 cask recipe. And also we use Quercus Humboldtii. So last year we did a bottling which was Scottish Distillery of the Year to celebrate our award in 2022, and it was matured in 4 Roses bourbon casks. It was just our unpeated spirit, and then it was the second maturation in Quercus Humboldtii. So that was our kind of first release using Quercus Humboldtii. But now I'm very pleased to say that this bottling is fully matured in Quercus Humboldtii. So on our website, if you go to the whisky, we've got release facts, and it tells you absolutely everything about the whisky: when it was distilled, how long it was matured, how many casks, peated, unpeated, cut points, all the rest of it. So it's all there on the website to look up. So these casks were filled between February and April 2021,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yep.
and matured for 3 years. So it's literally just 3 years old. So I think it's about time that we poured a dram.
Crack into it.
There we go. Hopefully you have your bottle at home and you can join in with us. And this bottling comes with, in the box, it comes with a very nice little leaflet that tells you all about the bottling. There's also a little bit about Alexander von Humboldt, who was the polymath, geographer, naturalist and explorer who found this tree, and it was named after him. Obviously he didn't find it, but he named it, if you like. Yes. And so Quercus Humboldtii, I'm just literally going to go to this presentation slide. There we go, Quercus Humboldtii. So you can see straight away it looks very different from an oak tree that you would see here. It's actually evergreen. You can see the leaf is a very different shape. It grows in Colombia and Panama, sort of 3,500 to 10,500 feet up in the Andean mountains. So sometimes it's referred to Andean oak as well as Colombian oak. And for us, we ask that our specification is that the timber is air dried for 36 months. This particular cask beside us was air dried. The timber was air dried for 24 months. So why the long air drying? Normally it'd be 12 months, it's the kind of industry standard. Well, the air drying helps to break down the lignin in the wood, and the lignin is what makes plant cells strong, makes the tree strong, but also lignin, when it breaks down, becomes volatile phenols. So the reason we do a longer air drying is that we want more of those volatile phenols coming from the oak into our spirit as it matures, so that's a big part of it. The casks then, when they're made, have a high toast and a high char. So the toast does a very similar thing. It helps break the lignins down, so the higher the toast, the more those lignins break down into volatile phenols. But it also caramelizes the sugars, the hemicellulose sugars in the oak become caramelized, and you'll see that when you taste this, you get those kind of caramelized, almost crystallized sugar flavors to it. And then obviously the high char increases the surface area, but also that charcoal that it produces helps remove some of the impurities from the wood. So just come back to the camera, and then we can talk about some of the flavours we're getting in this. Now I know both of you are tried this and have your own thoughts, so I've been talking quite a lot. I might hand over and let you guys tell me a little bit what you think.
I was always sure it was creme brulee for me, but I have a particular love of Marks and Spencer's Madagascar vanilla custard, and when I nose this, that's what I get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also you get the mouthfeel. It coats the mouth like a custard, doesn't it? It's got that kind of richness on the mouthfeel.
Yeah.
But it is more complex than that, because there's the peat in there as well, and that you do also straight away on the nose get a smokiness.
Yeah.
I said to Ross, I got a chocolate smoke. I don't know.
You have
smoked chocolate. That sounds good. Maybe it's hot chocolate by a bonfire. Maybe that's it.
Yes. Obviously, you get the sweetness, but yeah, the first thing that it stood out to me from this was just like, it's a really sort of, when you're talking about the caramelized sugars, it's almost like a meaty, like in my art, sort of burnt sugar going on, like a leathery sort of element to it, really savoury, which I think balances really nicely with the sort of sweetness and the creme brulee aspects that we mentioned. It's quite well rounded.
I also think there's a kind of interesting herbaceous note to it. It's almost like maybe a little bit of mint or even a new long tea, that kind of green tea. It's just kind of balancing the sweetness of the...
Yeah, the sort of fresh notes to it, I see what you mean. Yeah. Comes out quite a lot at the finish, actually.
So this is the first in our oak species series, and the intention is that we're going to do a series of releases over the years, looking at different oak species and looking at the flavour and how it impacts on our spirit. So it'd be interesting to get everyone else's feedback, and we should say this is bottled at 50.7 ABV as well, so just kind of trying to balance the alcohol with all those different flavours.
Yeah. Trial by panel, I think, for us to pick the 50.7 for that one.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So what are the different species of oak that you apply? Can we talk about what the species of oak?
We can, obviously. So yeah, as I say, we've got the 5 species of oak that we've filled at the minute. But we've also got some oak from different regions. So we've got some Dutch oak, some German oak, some Spanish oak. We've got some French Quercus Humboldtii, French Quercus Humboldtii. We've got some Hungarian Roba. So we're just seeing how all these different things develop. And in fact, if you visit the distillery now, the Fill Your Own is an ex-Oloroso cask, but it's actually Dutch oak that's previously had Oloroso Shen. So it's very interesting and gives it just a different layer complexity to whiskey.
It's very interesting to see I remember when we first got these casks in and trying the spirit after I think it was the 6 month mark where I first tried, and I was like really quite surprised how much flavour it had taken on, one, but number two, just how much it sort of stood apart from like the Chinkham cask, which is what I'd been used to up until that point, because I believe this was probably was the first of the other oak types that we were taking in any great scale. But yeah, I just found it quite surprising, just the difference in flavour between the two types.
It is, and I think as well that kind of, as you say, at 3 months, I remember trying, it was Scott Fraser at 3 months, and we were like, wow, it's just completely the caramelised sugar. And I think Dave Broom was up when it was at 6 months, and that's the kind of where that creme brulee comment came from, and it was very much like that, and it really developed very quickly, but then sort of after 18 months, 2 years, it just started to plateau out nicely. And I think, you know, if you think of that initial progression of 3, 6, 9 months to this at 3 years old, it's
So I have a question about the savoury aspect. You said you sort of referred to the caramelised notes and how that gives you savoury. Is there other two things linked?
So I think, well, Ross, you were talking about more of the meaty elements.
Just
I'm trying
like,
to get that bit.
If you're cooking like a really good steak, you know, and you get it on the pan, and you get that sort of char that is essentially just the sugars caramelising, and that's just so many different flavour components that come from that. And I think that kind of links the sweet and the savoury to me anyway. Like I get so much sort of a meatiness that balances the sweet there.
I think it's a really good example, because obviously when you see a steak, and you mentioned it before, when you've got sugars and proteins together and the right temperature, like when you do steak, you get the Maillard reaction. So it kicks in about 140 and 160 degrees, you start to get the Maillard reaction. But when you get up to about 240, that's kind of optimal. And if you think of our stills with sort of 3 bar steam, we're in that kind of 140, 160, the kind of bottom end of the range for the Maillard reaction. So you do get some of these slightly meatier notes developed. Very good. Okay, so I thought we'd just have a little chat about both of you, if that's all right. So Ross, you're actually born and bred Rassi, is that right?
That's true. Yeah. Born and raised here. Then I went away, studied in Glasgow for 5 years. You can't just not stay in Rassi forever. You got to see what other things are like. Came back and worked, and then I was approached by Alistair and Norman, who's our director of operations, about starting at the distillery, because they needed more distillers, as we were going to go up to double shifts at this point. This was back when it was just 3 people doing 8 till 4 Monday, Friday.
July 2018. That's when we first went to do so.
Yeah. So I joined quickly, and here it is 6 years later. So yeah, it's amazing how quickly it's actually. I remember just waiting. It felt like an eternity from us putting stuff into casks until we actually started releasing bottles, and since that point it's just absolutely flown by. Like talking about trying the Humboldtii at 6 months, and the fact it's already in a glass we're drinking as whiskey is quite hard to believe.
It's that wait, isn't it? That wait for that first single malt. Time slows down,
and then
and then takes off. Okay. Kelly?
Yeah, well, I'm from a very different place. I'm from Coventry, in the Midlands in England, and I was a French teacher in a secondary school. My partner and I, we came on holiday. Well, we had a camper van and we did the NC 500, and we saw the first sign that we actually knew Rassi existed was the ferry road sign at Sconser. We'd done the NC 500 and we'd come over the bridge to Skye, and we saw the sign and we thought, oh, we'll go and have a look. And it was actually Boxing Day, so everything was closed. And I remember saying to Jack, oh, it's a beautiful place, but I can never live somewhere like this. And 2 years later, my partner was looking for a career change, and he got the job here as the operations manager. And I then joined Jack here, so July 2023. I gave up my teaching career and came to be a tour guide at the distillery. and fell in love with the industry and the community here on the island as well. And you know, really grateful for the opportunity I've had to join the production team now, and I really love learning all these new skills. As a tour guide, you get glimpses at, you know, the whole process, and now being able to do the mashing in and then also bring casks that are finished maturing up to the warehouse to disgorge it, ready for vatting and bottling, and to be part of that whole process, it's really rewarding. And well, I'm looking forward to the day we release something that I've actually contributed to the new make spirit. You know, how long will I have to wait for that? A few years now from now.
2 years and 9 months.
There you go.
Yeah, special release.
Yeah, it's great though, isn't it, to actually have that your input into the process. And you know, I think you've done, you know, you're one of the team who've done quite a lot of different jobs on Rassi. You've kind of seen the hospitality and that side of things, and now you're distilling.
Sure, you've done a fair bit of bottling as well.
Yeah, plenty of shifts there, and some of the housekeeping, and but I think that's part of the community spirit here. You know, the company is very much part of that, and we all sort of muck in and support each other. So you know, it's a very rewarding part of the job.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so we got a comment there that's loving the dram. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, great stuff. I mean, I think it's very different from our signature single malt. It's quite a different style, really, of whiskey. But I think certainly very pleased with it.
Yeah. One I was always really excited for over the years, just waiting for this one to come out. It felt like just a very interesting cask that we had, sort of sitting there in the warehouse waiting to unleash, so to speak. One of many anyway.
Have we refilled the Humboldties?
We have indeed. They've been refilled, yep. Got a few more to fill, which will fill the next month.
Yeah, including this one.
Including that one there, yeah. Currently empty. We're not carrying full cask upstairs.
We'll have some first fill Humboldties and also some second fill Humboldties. Be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think it will be very interesting to see, because obviously, particularly initially, it was so active, it was giving so much to the spirit, and refilling it. You know, there's still going to be very active cask.
Plenty of life in it, yeah. But yeah, it'd be nice to see what that looks like actually. A similar thing a few years down the line.
And we had peated and unpeated spirit in these casks, matured separately and then vatted together shortly before bottling.
Yeah, I had a quick browse over the history of it before we came in actually. At that point we had our peated element was a 50-50 blend of Laureate and Rassi actually at the time.
So it's two different barley varieties. It's also this has got some of the champagne.
That's true, the LS yeast. Yeah.
So we've got that, and I think that brings a little bit of a drier notes to it. That kind of almost biscuity thing that sits nicely with it. The malty barley flavours in there too.
So what made you decide to go for the full maturation?
It was literally just watching it develop, you know, like looking at it at 3 month intervals, and you know, we did think, I remember about a year we were looking at it going, well, actually, is this going to level out? And that's the fascinating journey of it, and you know, we thought it would, it did, and it's now just kind of rounded, and so that's why we went to full maturation.
Yeah, it was interesting with the finish, but I feel it was like you could not have it.
Yeah, it's quite different with the finish. You can still pick up the kind of creme brulee, the vanilla custard. You still pick those elements up in that, but the Four Roses cask really drive that particular release. The influence from the Four Roses bourbon is really what that release is kind of based on, and then it's really the top notes that you get just from the Humboldtii. Great stuff. Well, I think we've probably spoken long enough.
Got a few.
We've got comments. All right, better check them. Ross, do you want to go for that?
Okay. Are there any more oaks you'd like to mature in that you don't currently have, and why?
Yes. Short answer. Yes. So as I say, I guess what's fascinating is the fact that there are so many different oak species. So 500 oak species just in the Northern Hemisphere alone. And I think it's trying to do more research and to see what oak species have been used for spirits in the past. Because I think that's absolutely crucial. The one thing is that you can't just go out and pick a tree. You know, it has to be coopered, it has to be quarter sawn, it has to be air dried. So there's a bit of a timeline. So there's a couple of things we are working on. I doubt it'll be this year that we bring those casks in. It's quite a long lead time, but yeah, there's a couple of other oak species. I think Quercus Humboldtii from Asia is a really fascinating one. You've got a subspecies of that, Quercus Humboldtii, which everybody knows as Mizunara oak. Well used in Japan. So I think the Mongolica would be of real interest, but also what we haven't done is we haven't used any Scottish oak yet. I think that would be fascinating. I know Greg Glass is doing a lot of work on that with White Mackay, and it'd be really interesting to see how that works with them. And also another oak species that's being used in the States is Gariano oak, which is in the northwest. Washington State, up that way. That's the local to that, and I've tried some spirit matured in that, and it's very interesting as well. Quite powerful oak. Not sure how that would sit with our spirit, and I think that's the consideration. And all of this is fascinating, but we still have to make sure that it works with our new mate spirit. So a bit of work to do, and we're certainly looking at other things, and there will be more releases coming in this series.
Yeah.
I'm under the impression that it's quite rare to even have a distillery that's in Scotland that's using 5 different types of oak.
Yeah, I think it is unusual to have 5 different types. So as I say, 3 species of oak, and what's interesting is that very few people talk about the oak species. No.
Yeah.
It's much more common to say North American oak or European oak or French oak or Spanish oak.
To the species.
Or even more common to talk about the previous contents.
Yeah,
So if you talk about bourbon cask or a sherry cask, that's very common. But I think for me it's what is it? And so our French oak casks, our ex-Bordeaux casks, contain 2 different species of oak, Quercus and Quercus Roba. What fascinates me is that in France they don't really talk about the species at all. They talk about the grain, whether it's fine grain or white grain, and then they talk about the forests, so Alli, Limousin, places like that. So because the geography really affects the grain as well. So if the tree grows very slowly, it's very tight grain. If it grows more quickly, it's more open, and obviously that really affects how far the spirit goes into the wood and just how much extract that it brings back into the spirit. So the oak species is fascinating, interesting, and something that we're really looking at. But you think you've also got to think about the regionality where it's grown, and Quercus Humboldtii in Colombia growing from 3,500 feet to 10,500 feet in the mountains. That just that range, the temperature is very different. So the higher up it grows, the slower it's going to grow, the tighter the grain is. And it's just
and do you know at what altitude our Humboldtii is growing at?
Not specifically for each cask, no.
Can it grow anywhere else in the world, or is it very much?
Basically Quercus Humboldtii is currently only found in Panama and Colombia, so it's a very kind of localized species, and I think you'll find that, and one of the things about plants is that they adapt and to their conditions, and they change their conditions, and it's the same with barley. Barley varieties are very much, if you look at wild barley in the Fertile Crescent, it still grows there, and over it's been there for over 10,000 years growing there, but it moved with people as people moved. So for instance, if you look at bear barley's been in the Outer Hebrides for 2,500 years, but it took all of that time to move with people, and it changed as it moved. So it changed. Basically the species are very much adapted to where they grow.
So was bear barley moved from Scandinavia?
No, so Fertile Crescent's in the Middle East, so
Oh really? Wow. Okay.
Israel, Iraq, southern Turkey, that area there. Talk about the Fertile Crescent, that's where it all starts. And if you go there, you can actually find the wild barley still growing. Like it's been there for 50,000 years.
So,
yeah.
We've got another question here. Where is it? Any plans for age statement releases, and at what age will they be released?
Well,
that's quite timely.
That's very timely indeed. Yeah. So I think for our signature single malt, no. I mean the 6 cask recipe is designed to produce 3, 4, 5-year-old whiskey, but also as we refill it, those casks, that'll take us to 10 plus years quite easily with that recipe. However, we've just released our unpeated Messiah bottling, and there will be later in the year the peated version of that. So it's the 3 casks, the X-Rye, the Chinkapin Oak and the X-Bordeaux in unpeated, and that is fully 5 years old. So that is our 5 years young release. That's actually been dispatched out there. It's getting out into the world now, and that again is part of a series. So every 2 years we'll release that. We've ring fenced the casks. So in 2 years' time it will be 7 years, then 9 years, then 11 years. So yes, we're doing age statements, but that's a deconstruction of the single malt. And again, the thoughts behind that is you can actually see the individual components maturing and how they change.
Yeah, I suppose it's breaking it down even further, I guess. The already 6 cask, breaking it down to another level.
And I'm interested to see how the rye matures and compare that to how the Bordeaux matures, and maybe one will taste better at 7 years and the other will taste.
I think it will. I think each will have a sweet spot in that, and I think that's why having a recipe works so well, because we can flex that, and we can flex ages as well as different cask types and refills and all of that. But yeah, you're right. I think if you follow that up until, what does that get us to, 2029, 2030, then I think you'll see how the different cask types change, and I think as well you'll see the difference between the peated and unpeated as well, and how that matures.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Do you think you would do a Humboldtii release just peated, just unpeated?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating to see the Chinkapin Oak and to see how the unpeated and the peated is developing differently. So during lockdown, before we even had single malt, and we were able to send out tasting packs of the 6 casks, and that's what we did during lockdown, and did virtual tastings. Generally speaking, a lot of people leaned towards the peated Chinkapin, but what's interesting now is to see at 5 years just how the unpeated Chinkapins come on, and just how rich and rounded that is now. And I think that we're working with the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, and I think they're potentially looking at a release of the unpeated Chinkapin at Sigma like beginning of next year. So really looking forward to see how that's received as well, and also to see how that compares with our Messiah as well.
With our own ones,
Any more questions?
I think there is one more there. Well, first actually, Humboldtii is wonderful oak, reminds me of Petraeus but softer.
Yeah, I think that's a very good analysis. Yeah. So Quercus Petraea in particular has got a lot of eugenol in it. So eugenol is when you taste it, it's like cloves. It's like that kind of really savoury spice.
Yeah.
And I think for me, this has got that kind of herbaceous note, as I would describe it, and that's not quite as powerful as that clove savoury spice, but it's got a little bit of that. So for me, it's kind of minty, oolong, green tea, that kind of element. So I think that's a really great description. It's like Petraea, but just slightly softer. Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
And one more?
Yeah.
One more quick one?
Let's go for it.
What other products are put in Quercus Humboldtii casks? South American wines, question mark?
So yeah, I mean that was actually one of your questions, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Why
the 225 litres?
Why are these casks 225 litres? And that is because they are 225 litres. This is actually a wine brut cask. So, yeah, interesting mention to wine. So yes, and also rum. These casks really lend themselves to rum with all of that caramelised sugar. So that's really where, if you like, we discovered them from.
We need to do a rum and a wine tasting next, I suppose. Nothing for it. Yeah.
Okay. Think we got any more questions, or shall we?
Well, the comments keep coming when you're thinking of going to it. Still have a full set of samples from the online tasting from 2021 and 2022. Look forward to sampling them between those samples and the 5-year release. That's quite good, actually, having those as a reference for that.
That'll be really interesting. That'll be a good tasting. That one.
And here's a nice one to finish on. Thank you very much for this tonight. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope to see you in person at Rassi next year. Well, we'll keep our eyes peeled.
Absolutely. Who's that from? So we can kill the counter. Has it got a name?
Boss Wardrop. Fair
enough. Well,
look out for you.
We'll be waiting. So, everyone, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and Ross has clearly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Good night. Thank you very much.